Another update on my MP5 by Kyosho, and reasonably successful, as you'll find out, but like most vintage RC buggies, not going quite as expected. But I hope you enjoy the video.
Hello RC fans, and more specifically Kyosho fans. This is Racing 393. So back on the MP5, if you recall my last video, I sort of purchased an older MP5 to get some bits off it, and basically I needed the engine mounts, so the engine plates. The ones I had were stripped, took the fixing points to the chassis, and although I did buy some other engine plates from another manufacturer, it didn't quite fit. So unless I got some made or made them myself, I haven't really got the time, I haven't really got the facilities to do that now. What I decided to do was to buy another MP5, so just a chassis. Complete chassis, less of wheels, tyres, engine, shell, etc. But it did have the engine plates on, which go onto the chassis, and then the engine mount bolts onto that, and the engine bolts onto the engine mounts. Simple. I was planning on running the original motor. Can't think why. Let me just think. What was I doing? The problem with the original motor that came with the kit, it was pull start, and the pull start was lower than the engine blocks, so the engine wouldn't sit flat. Now, on reflection, the chassis that I originally got with this car, because the chassis on this car is a new one, had a hole cut out in it, all very crudely bodged and chipped away, just so that the bottom of the pull start can just sit kind of chassis level at the bottom, and hence the engine could sit flat. So on reflection, the engine, this engine you can see before you, the .28, came with the kit, and it was put in. However, the pinion, I'm not sure if I can show you that, I'll try while you're here. Hopefully, I don't know if you can see that because it's all shadows and I can't see anything, but down there the pinion isn't quite in line with the spur gear, and the guy who sold this off me said he stripped the spur gear because he thought the pinion wasn't meshed. In fact, it wasn't lined up. So what I got was these. Now these are engine mounts which have a slider on the top. So this should allow me, providing that the fixing points are standard, which means they need to screw into the bottom of my MP5 engine plates. That's the tricky one. I'm not so sure that that's the case. I'm pretty sure I tried this, but I didn't have the original engine plates at the time. I can't remember. So this will allow me to move the motor forward and back, but in this case it needs to go forward. I've got to take the engine out again. It's not a big issue. There is a bolt missing from the engine mount. It's not the end of the world. I'm pretty sure I've got those somewhere. I'll have to try and if it goes in and fits, I'll hunt one out before I use it. So let's. What I'll do is I won't film it all in real time because you're all going to be probably bored of that. So let me just take the engine out, line up the new engine mounts to see if they fit, because it'll be a very, very short video of what not to do if it doesn't. Right, let me do that now. I took the engine out and just going to show you this, just so if you've not done it before. So that's the engine mount on, well, the engine part of it. So you have to put the bolts in. You've got this little slider top plate which goes on underneath the actual engine lug, and the two like minuscule, like, I don't know what they are, really small. Don't even see that on there, how small they are. Two screws. And then the engine mount itself, the side bit, it's got these like slotted insert areas, and you slot that onto the over there, over the nuts, then do the bolts up, and it bolts it to the engine. So you have that loose, so the engine should be able to move back and forth. So that's the plan. We'll put that in, put the other side in, and it looks like they all line up, which will be a bit of a bonus. So we'll see how we get on from there. Okay, so that wasn't quite straightforward, but small amount of success. So I've moved the camera and the car, so you can probably see it now. So the meshing, the pinion, the clutch bells it should be called, is there, and then obviously spur gear there, which controls the centre diff. You can see, move the car a little bit without knocking the microphone line, it's fully meshed. But what I will do, I will just move the camera ever so slightly, like that. I don't know if you can see that, I might have to, let me just move the car ever so slightly for you to see what I'm about to explain. I'm going to have to move the microphone as well. Okay, so I don't know if you can see that. Just the angle. I need you to see the bolts that are holding the mounts on. Let me just move that way a little bit. So just loosen. I don't want to take everything apart and move everything, so I'm just going to. Right, so we've got some bolts here, and there's one there which you may not see. There's sort of slightly different lengths, different bolts as well. The bolts that came with the kit are really long, and I found they bottomed out on the bottom of the sliding mounts before they did up tight. I think that's because maybe the lugs on the engine are supposed to be thicker. I don't know. So the problem was, yeah, that one's a little bit, that is tight, and so is that one, but it's not perfect. I'm going to swing around this way. I'll have to move the car a little bit here. In there, that one, they're slightly different bolts. Only because I was trying things out, I wasn't sure. Now they're not quite as long, but the size at the end, I haven't really got anything that fits that properly. I did have, couldn't find it. So it's a bit of a, I mean, it isn't going to go anywhere. However, I'd want that a bit tighter in there. So before I use the car properly, I will have to saw some proper engine bolts and mounts. Bolts, not the mounts, sorry, the mounts are fine. The engine has slid forward, you know, that way, ever so slightly, so that you can see the meshing is how I'd expect it. So that shouldn't strip now. The bottom of the engine mounts that go through the chassis fit really well, so they're in where they should be. I'm just not overly finished with the engine bolts that bolt the engine to the engine mounts. So I'll have to do a little bit of investigation about what size I want. Because they've got the nuts that fit onto those bolts slot into the engine mount, so there's specific size bolts. Now I do have the original bolts. I might have to just cut them down. It could be as simple as that. I just need to have time to do that. So that's what I'll probably do, is cut them down so they're shorter, but they still grab onto the lock nut and do up nice and tight. Anyway, that's that. The engine, this 0.28 engine is in place, but then, you know, a lot of vibration and torque is put under these buggies, so I want to make sure it's right before I use it. I can start it. I can start the engine, but it's more of a case of making sure the engine's properly bolted in before I sort of give it some stick. Anyway, that's the end of that one for now. Apart from the update on the bolts, we've got some shocks to fit this, so I'll probably do another video for that. Anyway, hope you enjoyed it from my Kyosho MP5. Thank you very much for watching, and